No chance. The young instructor laughed as the elderly woman picked up the rifle. The elite marksman shared knowing smirks, watching her hands tremble slightly. They didn't notice her eyes. Calm, focused, calculating. They'd never seen someone like Elizabeth before. But they were about to learn why underestimating a 68-year-old woman was their biggest mistake. The morning sun cast long shadows across Ridgeline Shooting Complex, one of the most prestigious training facilities in Colorado. American flags fluttered in the gentle breeze as a line of black SUVs pulled into the parking lot. 6 men emerged, all wearing tactical gear, sunglasses, and expressions of practiced seriousness. They were the Silver Eagles, an elite shooting team known for their precision and arrogance in equal measure. Elizabeth Thompson parked her modest sedan several spaces away. At 68, with her gray blonde bob and weathered skin, she looked more like someone's grandmother than a shooter. She wore a simple beige jacket over a blue blouse, comfortable pants, and sensible shoes. Nothing about her appearance suggested she belonged here. As she approached the registration desk, conversations quieted, heads turned. The young woman behind the counter looked up, confusion crossing her face. "Can I help you, ma'am?" The bird-watching group meets on Tuesdays. A few snickers rippled through the lobby. Elizabeth smiled patiently. "I have a reservation for the precision rifle range." Elizabeth Thompson. The receptionist's eyes widened slightly as she checked her computer. "Oh, I see it here. Have you been here before?" "First time," Elizabeth replied, signing the necessary forms with a steady hand. "My nephew gave me the session as a birthday gift. Said I should try new hobbies." More smirks, more whispers. Elizabeth pretended not to notice, though her hearing was excellent. Another fact no one would have guessed. Connor Walsh, the facility's head instructor, approached, tall, fit, with perfectly styled hair and a tight black t-shirt that showcased his physique. He exuded confidence that bordered on conceit. "Mrs. Thompson, I'm Connor. I'll be your instructor today." His tone was polite, but tinged with amusement. "Have you ever fired a rifle before?" Elizabeth adjusted her glasses. "Oh, it's been quite some time. I might need a refresher." Connor nodded, barely concealing his sigh. "Don't worry, we'll start with the absolute basics. Safety first, right?" He spoke slowly, loudly, as if addressing a child. Elizabeth merely smiled. "That sounds perfect." The outdoor precision range stretched 1,000 yards with steel targets positioned at various distances. The Silver Eagles had already claimed the prime positions. Their expensive equipment arranged with meticulous care. They were preparing for the regional championship, an event that attracted the best marksmen in the country. Connor led Elizabeth to a station at the far end away from the serious shooters. He began explaining the fundamentals of rifle handling as if reading from a children's book. "This is the stock. This is the trigger. Never point it at anything you don't intend to shoot," he said, emphasizing each word. "Thank you, dear," Elizabeth replied, letting him demonstrate proper stance and breathing techniques. Marcus Bennett, the leader of the Silver Eagles, wandered over, curiosity getting the better of him. He watched Connor position Elizabeth's arms, fixing her grip repeatedly. "New to shooting, ma'am?" Marcus asked, his voice friendly but condescending. "Oh yes," Elizabeth nodded. "My late husband had hunting rifles, but I never touched them. Thought I'd see what all the fuss is about." Marcus exchanged glances with Connor. "Well, you've come to the right place. Connor here is one of the best instructors in the state." Connor straightened, pride evident in his posture. "We'll have her hitting targets at 100 yards by the end of the day. That would be quite an achievement for a first-timer." "Don't get our hopes up," Marcus laughed. "The ladies in my family can barely handle the recoil." He patted Connor on the shoulder and walked back to his team, who were all watching the exchange with amused expressions. Elizabeth remained silent, taking in the weight and feel of the rifle, measuring distances with her eyes, noting the wind direction by the gentle sway of the distant grass. "Let's start with the basics," Connor said, setting up a paper target at merely 50 yards. "Just try to hit the paper first." Elizabeth nodded, keeping her expression neutral despite the infantilizing treatment. She looked through the scope, adjusted her position slightly, and took a deep breath. Her first shot missed the target completely. Connor tried to hide his smirk. "That's okay. First shots are always the hardest. Let's adjust your stance." Elizabeth allowed him to reposition her, though she knew exactly what she'd done wrong. The rifle was different from what she was used to. The trigger tension unfamiliar. She was calibrating. Maybe we should try a lighter rifle, Connor suggested. His patience already wearing thin. No, this one's fine, Elizabeth replied. Let me try again. By mid-afternoon, a small crowd had gathered to watch Elizabeth's progress. Connor had moved the target to 75 yards, and she was now hitting it consistently, though not with impressive grouping. The Silver Eagles took breaks from their own practice to observe their comments becoming less subtle. Hey, Connor, called Ryan, the youngest member of the team, his designer sunglasses perched on his perfectly styled hair. Maybe start her on the kiddie range next time. My 8-year-old nephew shoots better than that. A chorus of chuckles followed. One of the other team members, Dustin, pulled out his phone. I should be recording this for our social media. Grandma's first day at the range could go viral. Elizabeth pretended not to hear, focusing instead on her breathing, deliberately making small mistakes to maintain her cover. She played this role before in situations far more dangerous than this one. Connor tried to maintain professionalism, but his irritation was showing. Mrs. Thompson is doing fine for a beginner. He turned to Elizabeth. Remember what I said about breathing in. Hold. Squeeze. Out. Like this? She asked, deliberately tightening her shoulders, knowing it would throw off her shot. No, Connor sighed, physically adjusting her posture again. Relax your shoulders. You're too tense. Here. He placed his hands on her shoulders, pressing down with more force than necessary. Feel the difference? Elizabeth noticed a woman across the range, perhaps in her 30s, watching the scene with a disapproving expression. The woman caught Elizabeth's eye and gave her a subtle, sympathetic nod. Before returning to her own practice. From the main firing line, the Silver Eagles had set up a challenging drill, hitting targets at alternating distances. Their precision was impressive, each shot finding its mark with minimal adjustment. That's how it's done, Marcus announced loudly, clearly intending for Elizabeth to hear. He triggered 3 consecutive shots, each hitting within inches of the center. Years of practice, dedication, and natural talent. Some people have it, some people should stick to knitting. His teammates laughed, not bothering to lower their voices. Ryan high-fived Marcus, adding, or bingo. Isn't there a senior center down the street? How's the senior class going, Connor? Another called out. Ready for the Olympic team yet? Maybe the geriatric division? He pantomimed using a walker, hunched over. Connor unked greater than S face reened slightly. Being assigned to teach an elderly beginner was clearly damaging his reputation among the elite shooters he admired. Elizabeth could see his internal struggle. The professional instructor versus the man desperate for acceptance from his peers. Let's try something different, he told Elizabeth, his tone clipped. I'm going to set up a larger target at 100 yard. Just focus on hitting anywhere within the circle. Elizabeth missed the target entirely on her first attempt, prompting more snickering from the Silver Eagles. Did you forget your glasses at home, Grandma? Dustin called out. Whatever you think best, Elizabeth replied mildly to Connor, ignoring the hecklers. Inside, she was cataloging each comment, each face. Not out of bitterness, but from decades of habit, assessing personalities, weaknesses, pressure points. A range officer walking by frowned at the Silver Eagles, but said nothing. Unwilling to confront the facility's star team. As Connor walked down range to set up the new target, Marcus approached Elizabeth again. He leaned against her shooting bench, invading her space. Don't let Connor rush you, he said with false concern, his voice dripping with condescension. He's used to working with professionals. We have a ladies' night every third Thursday. Much more appropriate atmosphere. Lighter rifles, shorter distances, wine and cheese. Afterward, he winked. Maybe that's more your speed. Elizabeth looked at him, her blue eyes clear and direct. That's very considerate. Do you find it helps to separate shooters by gender rather than skill? Marcus blinked, caught off guard by the question. His confident smile faltered. Well, it's just that women generally don't have the upper body strength or spatial reasoning for precision shooting. It's biology, not bias. Is that so? Elizabeth adjusted her glasses. How fascinating. And yet, Annie Oakley outshot Frank Butler in 1875. Quite the biological anomaly. Marcus' expression hardened. Times have changed. Modern competitive shooting is a different world. Indeed it is, Elizabeth agreed pleasantly. Change is the only constant, isn't it? Indeed it is, Elizabeth agreed pleasantly. Change is the only constant, isn't it? Marcus studied her, suddenly uncertain. There was something in her tone, something in her eyes that didn't match her fumbling performance. Before he could respond, Connor returned. Ready for the next challenge, Mrs. Thompson? Connor asked, glancing between her and Marcus with suspicion. Please call me Elizabeth, she said. And yes, I believe I am. Marcus rejoined his team, whispering something that made them all look back at Elizabeth with renewed interest. She could feel their eyes on her, more calculating now. She had allowed a glimpse behind her mask, just enough to plant a seed of doubt. The afternoon was wearing on, and Elizabeth had progressed to hitting the 100-yard target with reasonable accuracy. Nothing spectacular, but enough that Connor had moved from dismissive to mildly impressed. You're picking this up quicker than I expected, he admitted. Want to try something a bit more challenging? Elizabeth nodded. I'm enjoying myself more than I anticipated. Connor pointed to a small steel target at 200 years. See if you can hit that. Don't worry if you can't. Most beginners wouldn't even attempt this distance on their first day. The Silver Eagles had paused their own practice to watch. They'd been placing small bets on whether the grandma would even hit the target once out of 10 attempts. Elizabeth settled into position, took careful aim, and fired. The shot went wide. Close. Connor lied encouragingly. The shot hadn't been close at all. Elizabeth adjusted, fired again. Another miss. Maybe we should go back to the 100-y line, Connor suggested, clearly embarrassed by his student's performance. No, Elizabeth said firmly. I'd like to continue. After her fifth consecutive miss, laughter erupted from the Silver Eagles. No chance, Connor finally exclaimed, his professional facade cracking. Mrs. Thompson, with all due respect, that target is simply beyond your current abilities. Let's be realistic. Elizabeth lowered the rifle and looked at Connor directly. His handsome face was flush with frustration, his patience exhausted. Behind him, the Silver Eagles watched with undisguised amusement. What would you say? Elizabeth asked quietly. If I told you I could hit the target at the end of the range, the one at 1,000 yards. The laughter grew louder. I'd say you're getting heat stroke, Connor replied, not bothering to hide his smirk. That target is for expert-level marksmen only. Even the guys training for competition don't always hit it consistently. Elizabeth nodded thoughtfully. I see. She set the rifle down carefully and stood up from the shooting bench. For a moment, Connor thought she was giving up. Perhaps finally realizing she was out of her depth. Instead, she walked over to her small duffel bag and unzipped it. May I use my own equipment? She asked. Connor unked greater than S eyebrows rose. You have your own rifle? I do, Elizabeth replied, pulling out a weathered leather case. A gift from an old friend? The Silver Eagles had gone quiet, watching with newfound curiosity. Sure, Connor said, amusement returning to his voice. Whatever makes you comfortable. Elizabeth opened the case, revealing a custom precision rifle that even to Connor unked greater than S experienced I was clearly exceptional. It wasn't flashy or new, but every component spoke of quality and meticulous care. That's quite a rifle, Connor admitted, surprise evident in his voice. Where did you get that? As I said, a gift. Elizabeth began assembling it with practiced ease, her earlier fumbling completely gone. Her movements were efficient, precise, almost graceful. Connor watched, confusion replacing his condescension. Mrs. Thompson, do you actually know how to use that? Elizabeth smiled, a different smile than she'd worn all day. It was confident, almost mischievous. Let's find out, shall we? The atmosphere at the range had shifted. What had begun as a joke, an elderly woman trying to play soldier, had transformed into something uncertain. The Silver Eagles had stopped their own practice entirely, drawn by the mysterious change in Elizabeth's demeanor. Connor stood to the side, arms crossed, watching as Elizabeth set up her rifle on the shooting bench. She adjusted the bipod, checked the scope, and ran her fingers along the barrel with the familiarity of someone greeting an old friend. You want to try for the 1,000-y target? Connor asked, making one last attempt to dissuade her. Even with a good rifle, that's practically impossible for someone who yes. Elizabeth interrupted, her voice calm but firm. The 1,000-y target, please. Connor shrugged. Your call. He turned to the Silver Eagles. Guys, we're going to need a spotter on the 1,000-y target. Marcus volunteered, grabbing his high-powered spotting scope with an exaggerated sigh. He positioned himself next to Elizabeth, a smirk playing on his lips. "I'll let you know how close you get," he said. "Sometimes the wind carries it within 10 feet or so." Elizabeth didn't respond. She settled into position behind her rifle, her transformation now complete. Gone was the fumbling elderly woman. In her place was someone entirely different. Focused, composed, radiating quiet competence. She adjusted her scope minutely, feeling the gentle breeze against her cheek. She took 3 slow, measured breaths, then held the third halfway through. The rifle cracked. Marcus, watching through his spotting scope, blinked in surprise. That's a hit." He couldn't keep the shock from his voice. Connor stepped forward. "What? Let me see." He took the scope from Marcus, training it on the distant target. Sure enough, Elizabeth's shot had struck dead center. "Beginner's luck," Ryan suggested from behind them. Elizabeth chambered another round. Without comment and fired again. Another direct hit, less than an inch from the first. "Holy," Marcus whispered. Elizabeth fired a third time, a third hit, forming a tight triangle with the previous 2. A stunned silence fell over the range. The Silver Eagles exchanged confused glances. Connor lowered the spotting scope slowly, turning to stare at Elizabeth. "Who are you?" he asked, his earlier condescension completely evaporated. Elizabeth sat up from the rifle, rolling her shoulders to release the tension. "Just an old woman trying out a new hobby," she said. The slight twinkle in her eye betraying her enjoyment of their shock. "Nobody shoots like that without years of training," Marcus insisted. "Decades even." Elizabeth nodded. "Yes, that's generally true." "Were you military?" Connor asked, his voice now respectful, almost awed. In a manner of speaking, Elizabeth replied. She began carefully cleaning her rifle, her movements methodical and practiced. "I worked for the government for many years. Different department, same principles." Understanding dawned on Marcus's face. "You were an operator, special forces." Elizabeth smiled but didn't confirm or deny. "I competed internationally for a while, set a few records that stood until the equipment improved." She said it casually as if discussing a bowling trophy. Connor Unk's face had drained of color as realization hit him. "Wait, Elizabeth Thompson? The Elizabeth Thompson from the '78 World Championships?" She inclined her head slightly. "My maiden name was Harrison, but yes, that was a lifetime ago." The Silver Eagles were now gathered around, their earlier mockery forgotten. Even the range safety officer had wandered over, drawn by the commotion. "She was legendary," Connor explained to his confused companions. "National gold medals before she disappeared from competition. There were rumors she was recruited for specialized work." Elizabeth finished packing her rifle, showing no reaction to Connor Unk's words. "The past is the past," she said simply. "Today, I'm just an old woman enjoying an afternoon at the range." Word spread through the facility at remarkable speed. Within 20 minutes, the parking lot was buzzing with whispers about the legendary shooter who had suddenly appeared at their range. Staff members who had been on break hurried back inside, finding creative excuses to walk by her station. Even the facility owner, a retired military man who rarely interacted with customers, emerged from his office to observe from a distance. The Silver Eagles, their previous arrogance utterly dissolved, had invited Elizabeth to join them at their premium station. The transformation in their demeanor was striking, from condescending smirks to respectful attention, from mocking comments to eager questions. "Would you mind showing us your technique?" Marcus asked, his tone now deferential, almost reverent. Gone was the swagger replaced by genuine humility. "The way you account for wind drift is unlike anything I've seen. I've been shooting competitively for 15 years, and I've never managed that level of consistency at long range." Elizabeth set her rifle down carefully and moved to help him. "Adjust your elbow there," she said, demonstrating the proper form. Her hands, which had appeared shaky earlier, were now rock steady. Too many shooters focus on the target and forget their own body. Your breathing creates micro-movements that matter more at distance. "Like this?" Marcus adjusted his position, following her guidance precisely. "Better?" Elizabeth nodded. "Now feel the wind. Don't just check it. Feel it on your cheek, your ears." She demonstrated a few more adjustments to his stance. Her instruction gentle but precise. "It's about feeling the environment, not just seeing it," she explained. The wind speaks to you if you learn to listen. Ryan, who had been particularly cruel with his comments earlier, approached hesitantly. Mrs. Thompson, would you mind taking a look at my grip? I've been struggling with consistency beyond 800 yards. Elizabeth spent several minutes with each team member, offering small but significant corrections to their technique. Their eagerness to learn from her was palpable, their earlier mockery seemingly forgotten, though Elizabeth hadn't forgotten a single word. Dustin, scrolling through his phone, looked up with wide eyes. I just Googled you. You're that Elizabeth Thompson, the one who set the world record in '78. That shot was considered impossible at the time. Elizabeth shrugged modestly. Records are meant to be broken. The young woman from South Korea who beat my record 5 years ago. She's the one you should be studying. Remarkable talent. The female shooter Elizabeth had noticed earlier approached, extending her hand. I'm Alexis, one of the instructors here. What you did today. She shook her head in admiration. Let's just say it was long overdue. These boys needed the reminder. Connor stood apart from the group, watching with a mixture of embarrassment and fascination. His confident posture had deflated, and he seemed unsure of his place in this new dynamic. Finally, during a break in the impromptu lesson, he approached Elizabeth. Mrs. Thompson, Elizabeth, I owe you an apology, he said quietly. His voice strained with genuine regret. I was condescending, unprofessional, and just plain wrong. The way I treated you today. He shook his head, unable to finish the sentence. Elizabeth regarded him thoughtfully, seeing past the handsome face and practiced charm to the insecurity beneath. You're a good instructor, Connor. Your technical skills are excellent, but you teach from ego, not from heart. You're so busy proving yourself that you miss opportunities to truly connect with your students. Connor Unk's eyes widened at her insight. He nodded slowly, accepting the criticism without defensiveness. I've never met anyone who shoots like you. I could learn a lot. We all could. If you'd be willing to share your knowledge, Elizabeth smiled, the first genuine smile she'd shown all day. That's why I came. Actually, my nephew didn't give me this session. I requested it. I've been watching your team at competitions. You have? Connor Unk's surprise was evident. 3 events in the past year. You're all talented, but you've plateaued. Too much focus on equipment and bragging rights. Not enough on fundamentals. She glanced at the Silver Eagles, now practicing with renewed focus and purpose. Talent without humility limits itself. Marcus overheard this last comment and nodded, a flash of understanding crossing his face. We've been stuck in the same rankings for 2 seasons. Maybe this is why. Connor followed Elizabeth's gaze, seeing his students through new eyes. Would you consider coming back? Maybe for a proper workshop. The team would benefit enormously from your experience. Elizabeth shouldered her bag, checking her watch. Next Tuesday works for me. 9 a.m. sharp. She paused, fixing Connor with a meaningful look. And Connor, bring the ladies from Thursday night. All of them. Talent comes in all forms. You just need the wisdom to recognize it. The range owner stepped forward, extending his hand. Mrs. Thompson, it would be an honor to have you as a guest instructor. We'd be willing to compensate you, of course. Elizabeth shook his hand firmly. No need. Sometimes the best payment is seeing people grow. She glanced at the Silver Eagles now huddled together discussing what they had learned. Besides, I have a feeling these young men will keep me entertained. From across the range, she could hear Ryan saying to his teammates, "Can you believe we were making grandma jokes? She could outshoot us blindfolded." As the sun began to set over the ridgeline shooting complex, Elizabeth walked to her car, aware of the respectful gazes following her. The Silver Eagles had invited her to join them for dinner, but she had politely declined. Some lessons needed time to sink in. Behind her, she could hear Connor already planning next week's training session, his voice animated with new purpose. The young man had potential. They all did. Once ego was set aside, Elizabeth smiled to herself as she started her car. Perceptions could be powerful weapons, and sometimes the greatest advantage came from being underestimated. It was a lesson she had taught today, just as effectively as she had once taught marksmanship to special operators. Some skills never fade, and some truths are timeless. Age brings wisdom if you live long enough to earn it. If this story struck a chord with you, remember, appearances are rarely the full story. The quiet grandmother at the coffee shop, the elderly man on the bus. Each carries a lifetime of experiences we can only imagine. Where are you watching from today? Drop a comment below and let us know if you've ever misjudged someone only to be surprised by their hidden talents. Subscribe to our channel for more stories that remind us why assumptions are often the first casualty of truth.